Here we have the Google Pixel 6 Pro, which is known for the worst battery life on the phone, and we also have the Vivo X200 Pro, which is known for the best battery life on the phone. So just how much battery life difference is there between these two phones? I'm UseNowGamer, and let's get started. I've also included the Oppo Find X8 Ultra in this test, as that has battery more of a typical smartphone in 2025. We'll start off with the charging test to see which one charges the fastest, with the Google Pixel 6 Pro on the left, the Vivo X200 Pro in the middle, and the Oppo Find X8 Ultra on the right. For the Vivo and Oppo, I'm using their respective fast chargers that were found in the box, and for the Google I'm using a standard PD charger. This is because the Google does not come with an official fast charger out of the box. But with that being said, the Oppo Find X8 Ultra finishes first in just 37 minutes with its dual battery design and 100 watt charger. Next to finish is the Vivo X200 Pro, which finished in a respectable 50 minutes, and right behind is the Google Pixel 6 Pro, which finally finished in 1 hour and 57 minutes. But let's get the battery test started, starting off with 3D Mark to simulate playing a graphic heavy game. Here we can see the Oppo performing the best in the benchmark, with the Vivo just behind it and the Pixel absolutely struggling on the left. And after 40 minutes of extreme benchmark testing, the Pixel has 82%, the Vivo has 85%, and the Oppo has just 69%. My theory for the Oppo draining so much here is because of the Snapdragon 8 Elite chip inside of the Oppo, which is much more power hungry than the Dimensity 9400, which is actually quite efficient, and the chip inside the Pixel is just plain not powerful. Now let's move on to a video playback test where all phones will play in a 1440p HDR video. And after an hour of playback, the Pixel is on 68%, the Vivo is on 77%, and the Oppo is on 61%, with the Pixel dropping the most percentage with 14% decrease. Now let's move on to a light game test on Temple Run 2. And after an hour and 15 minutes, the Pixel is on 51%, the Vivo is on 69%, and the Oppo is on 51%. Now we are going to record videos from each phone at 4K 60fps for 1 hour. This should really stress test the batteries on these phones, as it has to take in the data from the camera and put it into storage at the same time. And that hour of recording did some serious damage to these phones, as the Pixel went down to 20%, the Vivo went down to 48%, and the Oppo went down to 25%. The tables have now turned, with the Pixel in last place, but the Vivo is still very comfortably in first place, so let's see if the Oppo can make a comeback. Now we'll move on to YouTube Shorts for 1 hour to simulate some scrolling on YouTube. All phones did fairly well on this test, with the Pixel now being 10%, the Vivo being 42%, and the Oppo being 21%. The Oppo actually lost the least amount of percentage here with a 4% reduction. But now let's move on to the UFO test, which should simulate scrolling on web pages. And here, the Pixel decides to die at 5 hours and 31 minutes, so let's see how much longer the other two phones can go. And after that UFO test, the Vivo is now on 35% and the Oppo is on 15%. But let's get straight on to another video test. And after 45 minutes, these phones didn't drop too much in percentage, so I went straight back on to a 4K 60fps recording test. Now unfortunately, after around 10 minutes of 4K recording, because the Oppo hit 2%, it meant it couldn't record anymore, so I had to stop the recording test and I went back on to a light gaming test. Now what's amazing is the Oppo hung on to 2% for a whole hour light gaming test here, which doesn't seem to make any sense, but I guess it is what it is. But I do tend to find that Chinese phones seem to last a very long time on low percentages, such as 3, 2 and 1%, more than Western phones do. But the Vivo is now on 18% and the Oppo is still on 2%. But now, let's kill these phones off with some more HDR video viewing. And after 18 hours and 14 minutes, the Oppo Find X8 Ultra finally decides to die, which is actually quite a good time. Now let's go back to 4K recording, seeing as the Oppo is now dead. And after 9 hours and 2 minutes, the Vivo X200 Pro finally decided to call it a day. So, how much difference is there between the phone known for the worst battery and the phone known for the best battery? Well, in total, the Vivo X200 Pro lasted 3 hours and 30 minutes longer than the Google Pixel 6 Pro, which is roughly 64% longer. Now I must have to mention that the Google Pixel 6 Pro is about 2 to 3 years old, so it will have some battery degradation on it, but this still shows that the difference is very large between different phones, and how far some phones have come since just a few years ago. But with all that said and done, let me hear your thoughts in the comments, and I'll see you in the next video.